Hi, I'm Nikki.
And I'm Megan.
Welcome to the Grimdark Diaries.
We're your geek gal pals obsessed with true crime and all things dark and disturbing.
Hi, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Grimdark Diaries. I got to see Megan in person this week for a hot 5 minutes, and she was looking like a cyborg or like something at a cyberpunk. Megan, could you please explain?
I'm so sorry. You caught me at a real bad time, Nikki. I had a procedure done this week where I had to have a tube stuck through my nose, down my throat, and into my belly to monitor. I have acid reflux. It has been a very long process of my life, probably about 20 years dealing with this now. So the doctor, I finally have a consistent family doctor, which is nice. And she is finally starting to take care of some of the issues that have been like long withstanding. So I had a scope done already. That was late last year sometime. And the next step was to get it's called an esophageal manometry test. And that is just testing the acid content coming up from my stomach into my esophagus and testing the esophagus to make sure that it's actually working properly. And so there's like at the end of this tube is like a little pressure sensor thing. So it has like a bunch of sensors on the outside of it and it tests all those stuff. And the tube comes up and out my nose and it's attached to this little robotic controller thing. So
yeah, you had a little robot purse.
I did. Yeah. I had to carry it around like a purse. So awesome.
Yeah.
And I had to have the tube taped to my face because if it wasn't taped to my face, it was like moving around a lot, and having something jammed into your face like that and moving around is very uncomfortable. Like it was very uncomfortable. It just felt like there was something, obviously there was, but it just felt like something was stuck in my throat. So I was constantly swallowing, trying to get it down. Like I didn't dare try to cough because I feel like coughing I would have broken into like a coughing fit and wanted to throw up or something. They said it's totally normal. They're like, we have garbage bins all over the place. So if you need to throw up or anything, then we have garbage bins around. Don't worry. It's totally normal. I'm like, oh, this is the worst. And it had to stay in there for 24 hours. That was the worst
That's
part.
no fun.
No, it wasn't fun at all. So I was very happy to get that out. You just happened to catch me on the one day that I had it in.
I know, right? Worst timing ever. The one time I'm like, can I drop this thing off to you that I had 3 weeks to drop off?
Yeah, exactly. It's fine. You were the one who actually got to see me in person. Everybody else saw pictures, but the pictures were pretty modest. Except the one that I took where I had my mouth wide open and my tongue hanging out and you could see the tube in the back of my throat.
Oh, God.
Anyway, sorry to gross you all out. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, so if Megan has a raspy voice, it's because she had a tube down her throat.
That's right. Yes, this was only on Wednesday morning and we're recording Thursday, so this was yesterday. I'm like, what day is it today? I forget.
Oh, Lord.
It's one of those days. Anyway, the longer I talk, the more raspy my voice might get, so I do apologize in advance.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
I have a funny, not so funny new house neighbor story.
Oh, okay. Do share.
Yeah.
I'm
My
excited.
husband's going to kill me.
Oh, no. He doesn't listen to the
story.
podcast. It's fine.
I know. This will be the one episode he listens to. You watch. So our neighbors if you're like inside of our house, on the left side of our house, they have 2 little dogs and they're very yappy and they make a lot of noise.
Oh, no.
And we don't say anything. I mean, we've only been here for 3 weeks.
Right.
And they'll let them just yap and yap and yap.
Ugh.
And they don't discipline them at all. And I don't really know anything about dogs because I've never had one, but I feel like Matt knows dogs and he's like, no.
That's a
You
big
need to discipline
no-no.
them.
Yeah, you don't let them bark like that because then they will just do it all the time for no reason.
Yes. And they're like small. So it's that really like shrill yappy that just gets to you.
Mm-hmm.
So today we were both working from home and you could hear the dogs yapping, and it was early-ish. I think it was like 12:30 maybe.
Okay.
Not like super early, but like midday.
Right.
So they were just like howling and yapping, and they were out on their back deck, and it was like 20 minutes straight of these dogs because they wanted to get back in the house, just yapping and howling and yipping, and they were non-stop. And so I was going crazy trying to work, and I was in my office with the door shut, and then all of a sudden I heard our front door. And I was like,
Uh-oh.
And then I hear our front door a few minutes later. So I go upstairs to see. And my husband had reached his breaking point.
Oh, no.
So he went next door and he knocked on their door to
Yeah.
ask them, like, can you please take your dogs in? Like, we're trying to work. And it is very loud.
I mean, I feel like that's fair.
Right? So somebody answers the door. And God, I hope these neighbors never listen to this podcast. And somebody answers the door, and my husband asks them if they can take the dogs in, and they're like, we can't bring them in right now because there's an ambulance on the way, so they can't be inside.
What?
Yeah, and they were like, we're really sorry, like, oh, we could try and put them in the basement.
Oh,
and then yeah, so then when Matt comes over and I'm like, what happened? I was like, did you just go over there? And he's like, yeah, I just asked them to die quieter or something.
Oh no.
So I don't know. I hope the neighbors are okay. An ambulance did show up like 10 minutes later.
Oh, what are the friggin' chances of that?
I know.
Like the one time he finally got fed up and went over. Oh no. That's so
I know. He
sad.
feels awful.
Well, of course. You don't expect that ever.
No.
Gosh, I hope they're okay.
Yeah, so they probably hate us.
No, I'm sure that's totally fair. They probably are self-conscious about it, to be honest. I don't know. I know I would be as a dog owner if my dog wouldn't shut the hell up.
I feel like I should bake them something or something.
Aw, that would be nice.
Yeah, unless somebody actually did die, and then I don't think I should go over
Although
there.
you're the new neighbor, they should have brought you over something.
Yeah, we don't even know their name. Like, no one's introduced themselves to us.
I don't think I even remember, like when we moved you in, I saw the neighbors on the other side of you, but not the neighbors on that side.
Yeah.
So we were blocking their driveway with the truck.
Yeah, we were.
You started off on the wrong
hate us.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, keep us updated on how that goes, and hopefully the dogs are brought in more frequently going forward.
Yeah. I haven't heard them yap for the rest of the day.
Oh no. Well, that's good story. Hopefully nothing bad comes from that.
Yeah, I think everyone was fine. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Maybe the ambulance just came and they had to like help whoever in the house, but they were fine afterwards or something. And like did somebody leave with the ambulance?
I'm not sure if somebody left with the ambulance, but they were parked out there for like a while, and the ambulance person was just sitting like in there writing on like a clipboard. So I feel like it wasn't overly urgent.
Right. It might have just been one of those scenarios where I know when I was at a thrift store one day and I was standing in line, there was a girl in front of me who passed out. She just dropped to the floor standing in front of me. And I don't know why this was like my instinct to do this, but I didn't want her head to hit the floor. So I stuck my foot out to kind of like gently grab her head so it didn't like slam on the floor, because I feel like that's exactly what would have happened. So I feel like I kicked her in the head, but I didn't mean.
Oh my God, you kicked an unconscious
I didn't
woman
actually
in the
kick her.
head.
No. I didn't actually kick her. I just like my foot cradled her head and then it, put it on the floor more gently than when she was just falling and collapsing onto the floor. And I called the ambulance immediately because I don't know her history. I know nothing about this person. So I didn't know if, she had a history of fainting. I mean, my sister had a history of fainting. So it's something that it's not uncommon. It's not something I'm not used to, but at the same time, I don't know her history. So I felt it was important for the ambulance to be called. Anyway, she had two friends that were with her and they were like, I'm so glad you're calling the ambulance because she just had surgery on her head. I was like, no.
Oh my God, and you kicked her.
So of course I was really self-conscious about that, but the people that were with me who saw it, they were like, no, it's really good you did what you did because you actually like made sure that her head did not slam against the floor the way that she had actually fallen. So anyway, the ambulance came, they kind of sat with her for a little bit and then they left and she was fine. So that does happen sometimes.
Well, good.
Yeah, so that's good story time. So I feel like this is decent segue to another story that I would like to share with everybody. A true crime story, if you will. One that is maybe not as well known. It may be well known. We'll see. We'll see if you guys are familiar with this story. So if you remember, my category from last week that I rolled was a crime in plain sight. So we're going to start off with a gentleman named Brian Wells. He was a seemingly normal man. He was 46 years old and balding. He lived alone with his cats in Erie, Pennsylvania. He worked as a delivery man on the morning shift for a pizza place called Mamma Mia's Pizzeria. And according to his family, he was a very shy, quiet, and reserved person. He was an upstanding professional worker and was never late for work in the 10 years that he had been there. Well, that's a lie. He was late once, but that was because one of his cats had passed away, and he had called his boss to let them know that he would be late due to this reason. On the morning of August 23rd, 2003, Brian had worked his entire shift and was almost ready to call it a day around 1:30 p.m., but right before his shift ended, he received one more call for a delivery. 2 small pepperoni pizzas were all they were asking for, and it didn't seem like the address was too far away either. So, like the awesome employee that he was, he decided to make this his last delivery of the day, putting him well over the time to end his shift by the time he got back. Except, he didn't come back.
Ooh.
When Brian arrived at the location of his delivery, there was no house there. Instead, it was a remote compound that appeared to be a TV transmission tower site that was located in the middle of the woods. When Brian went to the door to deliver the pizzas, there were 2 men waiting for him, and then a struggle ensued. You might be thinking that these men wanted their pizzas for free. I don't know if you were thinking that.
I feel like that happens. People get jumped for pizzas.
Maybe. I don't know. I've never heard of that happening, but I feel like that's a thing that happens.
It's because it doesn't happen here.
That's true. That's very possible. Although I did live in Calgary for 6 years and I don't remember stories like that happening there either. But again, I wasn't paying attention. It's probably not like front page news. The men strapped a bomb around Brian's neck and then put a t-shirt on him that had the word "guess" handwritten on it. This was a whirlwind for Brian. He had no idea what was going to happen to him. After they did this, they gave him a list of instructions that they expected him to follow to a T, or they would detonate the bomb around his neck. The instructions were on white pieces of paper and had drawings beside them to understand the instructions better. Brian was extremely fearful about what they would do to him if he didn't follow the instructions. So he left immediately and carried out the first instruction, which said the following, quote, "There's only one way to survive this, and that is to go all the way. This powerful explosive device can only be defused if you follow our instructions. Act now, think later, or you will die." End quote. At 2:28 p.m., Brian arrived at the PNC Bank in Erie, Pennsylvania. He walked in the front door, holding a small cane in his right hand, and what appeared to be a ripple or a bulge underneath the collar of the t-shirt that he was wearing. He very calmly walked up to the bank teller and handed them a note. The note said, quote, "Gather employees with the access codes to the vault and work fast to fill the bag with $250,000. If the money's not there in 15 minutes, the bomb will explode." End quote. And so after they read the note, he showed them the bomb under his collar to confirm that the threat was real. The bank teller was quick to tell Brian that they weren't able to get into the vault at this time, whether it be because no one was there with the access codes or whatever the reason may have been. So instead they offered to give Brian all the cash that they had in their tills, which worked out to be about $8,702.
That's pretty far off from the $250.
It's not even remotely close to $250,000. Brian took the money, handed the teller his driver's license, as indicated on the instructions from the men who strapped the bomb to his neck, to give the police when they arrived. He grabbed a Dum Dum lollipop from the counter and put it in his mouth as he calmly walked out of the bank and got into his Geo Metro car. What he didn't know is that some of the customers from the bank had escaped before he held the teller up and called the police, so they were already on their way. The next step in the instructions said that Brian was to leave the bank with the money and go to a McDonald's restaurant somewhere near the flowers and a drive-through open 24-hour sign located in the parking lot. There would be a stone that had a 2-page note attached to it, and Brian had to find this to get the next step in his instructions. Brian successfully found the rock and read the instructions. It told him to head to a remote area on Peach Street, which was in a wooded area and many miles from where he was at the McDonald's, and said that the next note would be in a container with orange tape around it.
This is like world's worst escape room.
I know. It really is,
die
right?
If you don't escape.
Right?
Instead of just the crushing disappointment
of
having to hold up that sign while they take your picture.
That's right.
That says you didn't get out.
Does it say it doesn't say failed, does it?
It depends. There's different ones.
Oh, is there? Okay. I'm only
Yeah.
thinking of the ones that I've done, and how many times did I do it? I think maybe I only did it once or twice. I did it once with you, actually. Remember we had that 8-person, it was like the 3 of us.
Oh yeah, in that 8-person one, and we did not escape.
Well, it was for 8 people and we were 3, so I don't see how that was fair, but anyway.
No.
There was no way we would have beat that one.
Even when they showed us the answer, I was like, no, I wasn't close.
No. No, me either. Well, there was like 2 different rooms and there was like a passageway in between the 2 rooms, and it's just absurd. It was absurd. There had to be 8 people in that room to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Anyway, we didn't pass that one, but we didn't have a sign. I think the pictures were just the 3 of us.
No, we took a picture with the sign.
Oh, I don't remember.
I honestly don't remember.
I know. It was a while ago.
No, but you know what? You know what's really disappointing? The first escape room I ever went to was a couple years ago. It was the same place where you and I went to that one.
Yeah.
And we escaped with like a good amount of time to spare, for like an escape room, a good amount of time. Like we had like 8 minutes to spare or something, and we got out and we were so proud of ourselves, and they were like, amazing, like you did it. And then we ended up being like the record for that. I don't know if they did it by week or what it was, or by month, but they had a little board on the front desk of like each room, like the best times for the month.
Yeah.
And we were on the list of like best times.
That's
and we were
awesome.
like, amazing. Yeah. Except what we didn't realize, they accidentally handed us the wrong sign. And so we were telling everybody how we escaped and like we had like the best time and stuff. And then the picture got posted on their Facebook page and we were holding the like, you didn't escape sign. And everyone's like, you liars. And we were like, no, I swear.
Oh, and nobody noticed that? I'm sure the person who took the picture.
No, and we all looked so happy because we were like, yeah, we did it. And the sign said like, whatever, you failed or something.
In the air, cheering yourselves on.
Literally.
That is hilarious. I'm shocked the person who took the picture didn't catch that.
Yeah.
They didn't care about their job.
No.
No. Okay, so on his way back to this remote location, Brian was intercepted by the police. They pulled him over in a parking lot, brought out of the car, handcuffed with his hands behind his back, and sat him on the ground next to his car. Brian, being extremely overwhelmed by the whole situation, finally broke and told the police officers that he had been delivering pizzas in the early afternoon and was grabbed by 2 men at gunpoint who made him rob a bank. That these men put a bomb around his neck and told him to follow a set of instructions or else they would detonate the bomb. He yelled to the police officers, quote, "Have you called my boss yet? It's going to go off. I'm not lying," end quote. Apparently, Brian was overly concerned that his boss might think him a delinquent since he never did make it back to the pizzeria after that last delivery.
That is not where my priorities would be,
no.
But sure.
Not mine either. So at this point, the police officers contact the bomb squad to come to the scene so they could assess the situation, while they each went into their positions behind their police vehicles, guns drawn. It wasn't long before the media arrived and propped up their cameras to start filming the whole thing. Brian Wells was left to sit cross-legged by his vehicle for 25 minutes. Brian shouted, quote, "Why won't anyone help me?" end quote. It was at this point when the bomb around his neck started to make a beeping sound. It was getting louder, and it was getting faster, as if the countdown had started. The bomb squad had still not arrived. Brian started crawling on the ground as if to get away from the beeping around his neck, and that's when the bomb exploded. Brian was blasted backwards violently, throwing him onto his back, and a gash that was around 5 inches long ripped through his chest, leaving a gaping hole. He would let out a few last gasps for air, and his eyes would twitch before they finally rolled inward. And Brian Wells had died at the scene, in front of the media, filming the ordeal at 3:18 p.m.
I feel like the media would love that.
Well, exactly.
It's awful, but they would because they got the whole thing on film.
Yeah, it would give them ratings. At 3:21 p.m., the bomb squad finally arrived.
What took them so ding-dang long?
I have no idea. It was like 30 minutes before they got there. I have no idea what would have taken them so long.
Is this a small town?
This was in Erie, Pennsylvania. I think it's
I don't know the geography of...
I don't either. I didn't look up the population of Erie.
Maybe they don't have a bomb squad.
It's possible that they had to call them in from out of the town or whatever it was. I don't know if it was a town or a city. The police had a lot of work to do after Brian was killed. He left a trail of evidence that was fairly easy to follow. The small cane that Brian had was found in his car. It was about 2 feet in length. It was then that the police discovered that the cane was a ruse. The cane that Brian was carrying at the bank was actually a homemade shotgun in disguise, so he didn't draw attention or cause suspicion.
Like the penguin.
Yeah, it was just like the penguin. That's exactly who I thought of too when I heard that.
Oh my god, it was the penguin.
Yeah, the penguin. He didn't have a top hat though.
Are you sure this wasn't Gotham City?
Well, I'm not willing to confirm or deny that. It's all fake. He was advised to use this in the case that any of the bank staff thought to cause any trouble and decided not to cooperate. Brian's clothing was also analyzed. He actually had 2 t-shirts on when he passed away. The one on the top was the one that had guests written on it in big letters on the front. His employer confirmed that he was not wearing that shirt when he was at work that morning, and his relatives also confirmed that the shirt did not belong to him. So where did he get it from? Why would these would-be robbers/murderers put on a new shirt for him to wear? Guess. Once the officers had a chance to investigate the bomb that was strapped to Brian's neck like a neck-sized handcuff, they discovered that it too was a homemade DIY contraption. It was clear that the person who made this bomb likely had experience in mechanics, blacksmithing, and electronics. The bomb contained a watch, a cell phone, and a variety of wires. There was a triple-banded metal collar that was used to strap around Brian's neck, and it had 4 key locks on it, as well as a key lock similar to one as you'd see on a suitcase lock. The bomb part itself consisted of an iron box that had 2 6-inch pipe bombs that were each loaded with double-based smokeless powder. On top of this was an electronic countdown timer, as well as 2 Sunbeam kitchen timers, but these were not connected to anything and were meant to act as a decoy to anyone who was shown the bomb during the robbery. After this, the investigators decided to pick up the trail from where Brian left off. They grabbed the handwritten notes that were left in Brian's car that were all addressed to the bomb hostage and included all of the instructions that Brian was to follow, including robbing the bank of $250,000. The next step were to go to the remote Peach Street location, but when the police arrived there, the jar that would have held the note was empty. This made it obvious to the police that those men who were responsible for Brian's death were watching the case very closely through the media, since they aired the whole thing and made sure that all the next steps were not found, so they were unable to complete the game that these men had Brian playing. Brian was supposed to complete all of the tasks that would give all of the keys that he would need to unlock the cuff around his neck, and each key would also delay the timer on the bomb itself. It was an extremely complex game of survival that included random combination codes to locks as well as keys that were required to get to the next set of instructions. Drawings, maps, and even threats were included, and they were located all throughout Erie, Pennsylvania. It was noticeably clear that any wrongdoing of any kind against these instructions or failure to complete any of the tasks would mean a detonated bomb and death for Brian Wells. Following these instructions to a T was clearly the only way that Brian was going to be able to survive. The killer would soon go by the name Collar Bomber. At this same time, officers would go back to Mamma Mia's pizzeria to get the location of his last delivery post. They went to this random remote TV transmission tower site, which was located off of Peach Street. There they were able to find Brian's footprints, as well as tread marks that matched the wheels of Brian's Geo Metro. Sadly, there was no other evidence on the site that would have indicated who else was there with Brian, or who could have strapped the collar bomb around his neck. Journalists would, of course, find out about this location of where Brian's would-be captors strapped him and sent him to his death, and so try to gain access to the road that would lead them there. Unfortunately for them, the police had the road blocked off, and therefore no one was able to access the tower. But the crafty journalists would happen upon a neighbor of the transmission station who happened to be outside, and so they went up to him to ask him a few questions. His name was Bill Rothstein. He was a 59-year-old single handyman who had a background in engineering, mechanics, and metals, and he had lived in this area for many years. He was also a teacher in the area. Bill had no idea what was going on next door, since the area was so remote. There was a lot of land between his place and the tower, but the journalist informed him of what had happened and asked if they could go through his yard to see if they could see anything happening at the tower site. They were unable to see through all the thick bush at the back of the property. So, not long after they arrived, they were gone again. The investigators were at a loss. What was the purpose of the shirt? What was the purpose of the game that they were sending him on? A scavenger hunt-like game with all of the clues hidden in plain sight where anyone could have found them.
It's an awful scavenger hunt.
It really is.
I'd like to find chocolate or bottles of wine.
I feel like
on my scavenger hunts.
Yeah, that's what a scavenger hunt should be like, in my personal opinion. Not to not die.
I mean, that's always the goal.
With
everything
for sure.
I do in life, but
yeah. Why was this all done in the middle of the day, in broad daylight? So many questions, so few answers. Sadly, with no more evidence about who was responsible for this bizarre case, it would soon start to grow cold. However, a few weeks later, on September 20th, 2003, the police received a call from Bill Rothstein. It turns out Bill had been keeping something very dark from everybody. He told the dispatcher that he had been hiding a dead body in the freezer located in his garage at 8645 Peach Street.
Why? Why did he have a dead person popsicle?
We're going to get there, but whoa, this is just, the twists are not done just yet. As soon as the police heard this, they went to Bill's house and arrested him and took him to the state penitentiary. Bill said the guilt was getting to him and that he was even considering suicide. Police did indeed find a suicide note that he had written that was tucked away inside his desk at home. The letter expressed Bill's deepest apologies. It said, quote, "To those who cared for or about me," end quote. Bill notes that the body belonged to a man named Jim Roden. And Bill claims in the note that he did not kill Jim and had nothing to do with his death. Did the police just stumble upon another crime case? Yes. Yes, they did.
Gotta love that. It's a 2-for-1.
Right? 2 for.
Or is it a gift with purchase?
Yeah, that's what you hoped for, right? With the ghost in your house?
Yeah, undecided yet. I'm not sure if I have one.
Okay. All right, you keep us updated on that one.
I will.
Okay. Was it connected to the Brian Wells case? Well, that is yet to be determined. Bill agreed to testify against the person who did commit this murder for immunity. Who was his friend? Her name was Marjorie Deal Armstrong, who was actually Bill's ex-fiancée. She was one of the scariest women in Erie, Pennsylvania, because she was known for a long list of her ex-lovers that were killed under very strange circumstances.
So she's like a Black Widow.
Yes, that's kind of what it sounds like. At 35 years old, she had murdered her boyfriend, Robert Thomas. She claimed it was all in self-defense and had to shoot him 6 times to save herself from him.
That's a lot of times.
It is a lot of times.
For self-defense.
I mean, she could have been missing. Shooting him in the arm and the foot. I don't know. A jury eventually acquitted her for this crime. Only 4 years after this murder, her husband Richard Armstrong would die by falling and hitting his head, causing a cerebral hemorrhage at home. Accidental is how they would rule this death. Over the years, Marjorie's smarts would turn to madness. She was suffering from bipolar disorder. Now she was contacting Bill to take care of something for her. She had shot and killed her boyfriend, who had been living with her, with a Remington 12-gauge shotgun in the back, all because they were fighting over money. She called Bill to help her clean up the mess and hide the body for her. He was scared of her, so he did what she asked. He was able to melt the shotgun down into pieces of metal and threw the pieces out all around Erie. What she had asked him to do with the body, though, he just couldn't do. The body had been in Bill's freezer for 6 weeks before he contacted the police about it. He was meant to grind up the body, but he just couldn't do it.
Grind it up how?
Well, he has tools and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, with tools. Thank you for that clarification.
Tools and stuff.
like a saw, like a meat grinder, like a sander, and he's just gonna sand it down.
Yes, that's how it was. Sanding up the body. I said grind, not sand. I mean, I guess you could grind the sander on the body. Anyway,
I feel like you can grind most things with tools if you're determined enough.
That's right. See, that's what he was gonna do.
Glass half full.
All of the things. Yep. But he couldn't. On September 21st, 2003, Marjorie Deal Armstrong was arrested for the murder of Jim Rodin. So what does this all have to do with the Brian Wells case? It appeared to be nothing, so the federal officers that were investigating the collar bomber didn't seem to be paying much attention to it. However, in April 2005, the feds get a call from the Erie State Police, who would convey that Marjorie was trying to strike up a deal. She wanted to move to a minimum security prison if she handed over information of Jim's death and how it related to the collar bomber case. Apparently, Bill Rothstein was a big dirty liar. Or was he? Marjorie may just be too paranoid and narcissistic to stop herself from being the type of person to brag about the genius plot to kill someone through a bank heist scavenger hunt ploy. The federal officers brought Marjorie in to interrogate her about the crimes. She did not admit to committing them herself. However, she did admit to knowing about them and also was the one who gave the mastermind the kitchen timers. She also stated that she was remarkably close to the bank while it was being robbed by Brian. Apparently, according to Marjorie, Brian wasn't a victim. He was in on the ruse, as was Bill Rothstein. Apparently, Bill was the mastermind behind the entire plan. What Marjorie didn't know was that the federal officers had 4 informants that would tell them that Marjorie had been very quick to brag about the entire plot, and that it was her idea to begin with. She also divulged to them that she had to kill Jim Rodin because he was going to tell on them about the robbery. I don't know who he was going to tell, but apparently he was going to be a tattletale.
I feel like that would be the right kind of tattletale, though.
In late 2005, a witness came forward to give the feds another break in the case. An ex-television repairman, who was now a crack dealer, named Kenneth Barnes, was a close friend of Marjorie, and they used to go fishing together. Kenneth had been apprehended on unrelated drug charges and didn't want any more time behind bars, so he agreed to a deal. He was charged with conspiracy and weapon-related charges regarding the bomb case. He confirmed what they knew all along. Marjorie was the one who was in charge of the whole operation. Apparently, Marjorie needed the money so that she would be able to pay Kenneth to kill her father so she would be able to inherit his fortune. According to Kenneth, he knew Brian Wells. Brian used to pay for a prostitute that operated out of his crack house. Brian would buy crack to pay for sex with the prostitute and soon ended up in debt with the crack dealer. In July 2007, the investigation was finally over. After almost 4 years and over 1,000 interviews, Marjorie and Kenneth were both charged for the scavenger hunt style robbery/murder. The indictment that charged Marjorie and Kenneth allegedly also charged Bill Rothstein and Brian Wells as being co-conspirators. Brian was under the impression that the bomb was fake and was told that the scavenger hunt was just a ploy to confuse the police. None of Brian's family could understand why he would ever participate in such a plot. Was he aware of how much danger he would have been in, especially assuming the bomb was fake, knowing Marjorie and her devious ways? A week later, the FBI came to the conclusion that the scavenger hunt was just a giant hoax. Apparently, if anyone at any point tried to remove the collar, even with the keys or locks, it would have set the bomb off. Brian had no idea, but as soon as that collar was strapped around his neck, his life was destined to be over.
That's terrifying.
I know, it's really sad and scary. I can't even imagine. In September 2008, Kenneth Barnes pled guilty to the conspiracy and weapons charges. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison, but he still agreed to testify against Marjorie, just hoping that it would reduce his sentence at all. It was reduced by half for his testimony in 2011.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he suffered from heart disease and severe diabetes and would eventually pass away in 2019. Sadly, Bill wouldn't make it to see any of this happen, as he passed away of lymphoma in July 2004, so a year after everything happened. Marjorie's case was not that straightforward. First, she was deemed not fit for trial due to her mental state. And then when she was finally deemed to be fit, it wouldn't be long after that when she would be diagnosed with glandular cancer. Things were put on hold for a while until her prognosis was clear. Once that was received in August 2010, she had about 3 to 7 years to live. Prosecutors were ready to take her to the trial, and that date was scheduled for October 12th, 2010.
These people need a multivitamin and
right?
to eat some more vegetables and to exercise. They are all very ill.
Right? They were not very healthy people.
No, that's very unfortunate.
I know. I mean, yeah. The whole thing is kind of crappy because, I mean, they all passed away very soon after all this happened. Well, I guess 2019 isn't that soon. But Marjorie was sentenced to life plus 30 years at the Federal Medical Center Carswell near Fort Worth, Texas on February 12, 2011. And then she died in 2017 at the age of 68 of breast cancer on April 4th, 2017.
I thought she had glandular cancer.
Glandular cancer. Yeah, I guess it spreads. So the actual cause of her death was breast cancer. So if you want to hear more about this particular juicy true crime story, you can watch the Netflix 4-part docuseries called Evil Genius, the true story of America's most diabolical bank heist. Now, there's a lot of debate on this one because Bill Rothstein, they kind of determined that Marjorie was the mastermind behind everything because she had admitted to it, and Kenneth Barnes was also in agreement that he got all his instructions from her. But there's a lot of like, who would have had the ability to create the bomb and who had the story goes on, and I didn't really like capture all the details in it, but Bill was extremely smart, like intelligent. He was very well educated. He spoke very clear and concise English, like somebody who really, really took the time and effort to speak properly. And
didn't you say he did metal things and he was an engineer? And
yeah. Mm-hmm. He was an engineer. He worked, he had blacksmithing experience and worked with metals and things like that.
So then why is it up for debate who made the bomb?
Not up for debate who made the bomb, but who was the mastermind behind the entire operation.
Oh, like whose idea it was to make the bomb.
Exactly. That's right. So Bill and Marjorie were both, I guess they were engaged twice in the past, and she was living with her boyfriend Jim Roden at the time, so they were off again. If they were on again, off again couple, then this time they were off again. Although I believe it did say that they dated and were engaged in the 60s and the 70s, so this was like the early 2000s, so they were long done at this point. But anyway, I guess she was also of the same caliber where she was super intelligent as well. And she was extremely educated. And I guess at some point her bipolar disorder kind of kicked in and she ended up going towards the side of unable to control her ability to keep control in general. So that is really sad and unfortunate. And yeah, so that's what happened to Brian Wells. He was the victim, but also potentially also could have been the perpetrator. I don't know. It didn't really like finalize that. There's no real...
Well, I feel like you can never really finalize it because he's not around to answer.
Exactly. That is the end of that story.
It's wild.
Well, I think we're ready to wrap it up. So I guess it's your turn to roll.
Okay, it's my turn to roll. I'm wildin'. Ooh! Ooh, a 3.
Oh my God. I feel like I really should stop being surprised by the low rolls that we get.
I need to, you know what I think my problem is?
That I
know we
didn't roll
talked
for
about
you?
No. I talked about this before, that I always buy a new set of dice for every new like campaign or whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I think the problem is that I'm using my D&D D20 to roll, but really I need to go buy a grimdark D20.
Ooh, that's a good idea. We should have
Yeah.
our own set of grimdark D20s.
Yes,
that we roll
that's
with.
what I need. I'm getting my grimdark stank on my D&D die.
Even though my die is very grimdark looking because it's got that purpley color that we have for our logo, our background and stuff on the logo. But yeah, I think a specific die for that would be a good idea.
So my category is forbidden love.
Ooh, I love a good forbidden love story.
Steamy. Or not.
I mean,
maybe. Who knows?
Depends on what kind of steam you're talking about in this true crime story that we're about to talk about.
Yeah. Is it steam like Jack and Rose from Titanic, or is it steam from a decomposing body? Tune in next week to find out.
Exactly.
The kind of cliffhanger we all need.
That's right. Exactly.
If you guys want to follow us on social media, you can find us at The Grimdark Diaries on Facebook and Instagram, and Grimdark Diaries on Twitter. We have an email account if you need to holla at us. It is thegrimdarkdiaries@gmail.com. If you can follow us or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating, and a comment would help us out a lot. Make sure you tune in next week to see what I come up with for forbidden love. And remember, a friend in the dark beats alone in the light.